Good morning, everyone. Our speaker for the day, Mr. Rohit Ji, faculty members from different department and colleges of CGC and their students. As already shared by Arshdeep, we are very happy and honored to have a very experienced and seasoned professional, Mr. Rohit Than, today with us. And I'm sure you have just now heard of what kind of experience he brings along with him. So, it's been a long time. He has been showing professional excellence in Canada. And I'm very thankful to you once again that you have spared your time, because I know it's late evening for you in Canada. For sparing your time and taking this hands-on session with our students. And my strong piece of advice to all the students who are listening to me, that this is going to be a hands-on workshop. So whatever best you can do, please try to do it simultaneously, and do not hesitate or shy to ask your questions towards the end of session, because there are going to be a lot of inputs and a lot of experience sharing and the knowledge which is going to be offered by our guest speaker for today. So just make the best use of such workshops, because there are going to be a lot of new, details and technological aspects which will be shared with you, and you're definitely going to, enjoy this, and this will, prove to be a very enriching learning experience for you all. And as Ashdeep just mentioned, because at Department of International Affairs, CGC Landran, we have been running this series for the last 1 year. And we have invited so many learned professionals and academicians, from across the world, from our partner universities, who have joined, in spite of lockdown also, and they have spoken on various themes, whether it was hospitality, computers, business management, education, pharmacology. So we had a good number of speakers who have joined us in last few months and shared their experiences with you. And I think that's the beauty of this international speaker series. So my best wishes to all of you, and thank you very much once again, Rohit Ji, for joining us. So I'll stop here and hand it over back to probably the speaker now. Rohit Ji, it is all yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Ramandeep and Ashley. It's a pleasure to be here, though it's late over in Canada right now. It's almost 9 p.m., but that's fine. That's what I love, interacting with different people, and especially young people, in order to keep me young even at 47. And a big good morning to everyone out there, for all the faculty members as well as the students, and a special thank you to Chandigarh Group of Colleges and Dr. Ramandeep for inviting me and having me on stage. This one is going to be one of the hands-on workshop. We won't really talk much theory about it, and I guarantee you I'm not going to bore you with a lot of PPTs or slides or anything. We'll definitely go with certain slides which are required, but 70 to 80% of this workshop is purely hands-on. And I'm going to show you exactly how these technologies work. I'll actually demo these technologies. Some of you, in case you have certain credit cards or anything with you, you can definitely try on with me, because you need a credit card to actually even for the demonstration purposes, you need certain account or anything. But I'm actually recording this whole session so that even in case you miss it out right now, you have this video. I'll be sharing all the slide deck as well as the presentation videos to ma'am after the once it is actually streamed out, and I'll upload it on my YouTube channel. I'll share all that with you. So in case even if you guys are able to miss it somehow, you still have this video with you. You can give it a hands-on after, let's say, 15 days or 10 days or whatever the way or time, whatever you feel it's good for you. Okay, so let's move on to the actual concept, and we don't want to waste much of your time. And I do the serverless compute, whether we have servers or not, just a bit about me, which I talked about, and what I do. That was the slide that I covered. And agenda for today, we are going to definitely talk about the serverless compute, the serverless use cases. We are going to have exact demo on the serverless services like web app services, websites, Azure SQL server or Postgres server, setting it up, like provisioning those servers, and you'll actually practically see you can set it up like in just 5 minutes time and actually start using it. So even you don't have to pay like a $200,000 fee or anything. It's just like might be a $5 or like a $20 based upon whatever you want to set it up. And yes, we'll go through a question answer session afterwards. And this was all about the serverless compute. Why we are using serverless compute? Because the cloud providers help us to set up everything for us. They are virtually doing all the things at the background for us. We don't have to set up anything. Scalability is one another help that comes in place. You want your servers to grow up in terms of RAM or in terms of CPU. Let's say the load gets increased, you can easily scale up. And let's say that scalability was required for 2 months, and afterwards you want to reduce it for, let's say, again back to the previous one, so you can easily scale it down. So that's the scalability that comes in place. And pay for what you use only. So it means if I used a higher capacity server for 2 months, so I'm only paying for 2 months, and then for the next 10 months, let's say if I used a lower capacity one, I didn't actually fully throttle the server, so I'm going to pay it less. So it's purely like based upon the use cases, like what I really want to use and not what exactly the things are I have to spend it around. And one of the major things which business houses they get as an impact is they don't need to buy a servers, right? They don't need to buy software, they don't need to buy servers, they don't need to spend on the capex cost, which is a capital expenditure cost. As I was mentioning, the typical server might cost you like from 2 lakhs to like 5 lakhs or even 10 lakhs, depending upon what kind of a configuration you want. So those kind of a capital expenditures are definitely reduced by the serverless compute. Okay, so I was going through this serverless use case, and one of, let's say, you just imagine a fictitious corporation which has a less of a seed funding, it's a startup. So on the left hand side, if you see the traditional data center, like the way which I have worked, I've spent my lifetime in traditional data centers. So you would definitely need initial investment on servers, software, you need maintenance and running. You need skilled personals for required maintenance. Of course, you need a server engineer, you need a database guy, you need, let's say, an infrastructure guy. You would be putting on a depreciation for that. You would have scalability issues. But let's say if the business house goes in for a serverless compute, then entirely it's a different case altogether. So you are not paying for an initial investment. So even if you're going to buy, let's say, 3 servers, you're not going to pay an initial investment. So that probably saves you, might be 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs. The capital expenditure cost is saved. You are not going to maintain the servers. The servers are definitely going to be maintained by the end providers or the cloud providers. Depreciation is going to be not available because you're not actually spending on that asset. And scalability on demand, yes, you need to scale up in terms of sales season or certain seasons where the load goes up, and pay for what you use. Of course, if I used it for 2 months only, I pay it for 2 months. And if I used it for, let's say, 12 months on a average basis, I can even see my billing details. So probably the serverless compute would be a good idea where the business houses, they don't really want to invest on a initial investment funding. Okay, let's go on to these were the serverless patterns which I was discussing. And the one of the patterns which have is the API management. This is primarily used for setting up the web APIs for front-end apps like Angular or React or Vue.js or anything. It can integrate with the federation entities or for authorization and authentication. It can scale like automatically for like a million users in like few seconds. You don't have to do anything. Automatically scaling up and automatically scaling down can easily be configured out. The another AKS service, like people are nowadays are heavily focused on AKS or Kubernetes services. Okay, Kubernetes services is one, like if you really want to try out a Kubernetes service, you don't have a server or anything, you can just use the Azure or AWS or Google Cloud to set up that Kubernetes service. It can set up the cluster for you. You can set up 1 node cluster, 4 node clusters. People can develop container based applications or microservices based applications out here. So this is one of the like the 2 serverless patterns which are used. The another patterns which we have is the logic apps as well as the data factory. The logic apps are primarily used for automation. So let's say if you want to run a marketing campaign for, let's say when the admissions session is opened out, or let's say you are running a kind of a campaign for certain workshop or anything, you can use those logic apps. I was actually giving you an example out there. So let's say you go on to Elanthe Mall for shopping and you give your email ID over there for a certain, let's say you buy certain thing from Aldo or any other brand. So what happens is you would start automatically receiving emails from them. These are all automatically can be done by logic apps. You have to just feed in the data, your email addresses, and then automatically the emails are triggered out. Though they give you the options to unsubscribe also, but that can be, nobody is there to actually like clicking a button and sending those automated emails. These emails are automatically sent around. They can be configured the way you want to send it around. Even for if you are having a credit card or let's say a monthly statement from a bank, this is automatically triggered and send it to you across. There is no person clicking any buttons around there. So these are the automation patterns we can use. Data Factory on the other hand is also a serverless service you can use for extraction, transformation, and load for data integration. You can read data from, let's say, your on-premise. You can read data from any ERP application like NetSuite or Dynamics or SAP or anything. These are like fully managed service. You don't have to set up any server. Everything is managed by the cloud provider. You just need to set up the data pipelines. That's all. So, and this one is one very important, the app service, the most commonly used, and we'll have a demo on this. I'll exactly show you how to create an app service. This is exactly you would use if you want to host a website, let's say a ASP.NET Core website or a Node.js website or anything. We'll create an app service, no server, everything would be configured automatically. We'll just click on certain things and everything would be set it up. We'll see our website running, and then we'll also deploy a small application like an ASP.NET application from our local PC to this Azure based website. So we'll have a complete demo on this. So these are the standard serverless patterns which Microsoft Azure has. And yep. So as I mentioned, I didn't want to really spend much time on theory because that's what don't people like it. Even I don't like going through those slides, but they were entirely necessary because in order to explain, you need to have certain context what we are going to do. So one of my friends, he always mentions like this: everything looks good and works in theory, but let's get our hands dirty with the actual technology, right? So whenever somebody asks you like, is it like, does it work? Yes, everything works good and works in theory only. Unless and until you actually test it out in the practicals, you never know how it exactly works. So let's go for the demo. But before that demo, there is one more thing, because we are going on to the actual Azure portal. So when you go on to the Azure portal, I'll show you how you go about it. The Azure portal would need one Microsoft account, just like one account which you create on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on social sites, whatever. You can use your Office 365 account also within this Azure portal. So that is one thing. So in order to use Azure, Microsoft Azure serverless or cloud computing, we'll be needing one account. That is very, very necessary. The second thing is, once you have this account can have multiple subscriptions. And in order to work with that, you can have one subscription or multiple subscriptions. And that's where I was asking, actually, like, we need a credit card or we need certain kind of a financial details which cloud would be asking for you. There are certain ways by which you can get a free detail also, like a free account, or I'll show you that also. But still it would need what you call as a credit card details. You are not actually charged for it, but those details are stored. And then you can go for different subscriptions. Like if I am as a company, let's say a Chandigarh college, a group of colleges has one account of Azure, it can have multiple subscriptions for different departments. Just imagine one subscription they can have for international affairs, one subscription they can have for, let's say, MCA department, one subscription they can have for, let's say, BTech department or engineering department. Now, why these subscriptions subscriptions are like multiple subscriptions can be there, because if you want to, let's say, see the charges or anything, so I can see, okay, how much this particular department has spent on those, using those charging, right? So you would be getting a bill after every month where you can see which resources you used and how much you were charged for that. So that is very, very essential out here, right? Now let's go on to the actual practical stuff, and keep this thing into mind. This is very, very important, and I've got certain links out over here. This is one of the links. I'll share this link, don't worry about it. I'll share whole of the slide deck and all this what I have once the workshop is over. And if you see, this is one of the free Azure account which you can create. Now what happens is, if you just want to try out as a learner, let's say Azure free account, you can just search on Google. Even if, let's say, on Google you just search on Azure free trial, that's all. When you search for a free trial, the first link you will get is create your Azure free account today, right? So when you click on it, just gives on to the same screen out here. And now here it is different for different countries, because I'm right now in Canada, so it gives me a Canadian $200 credits, right? So it means I can try out services. Every service come with certain free tiers and with certain pricing tiers, so I can use this $200 credits. In India, I think so it's around 25,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees, I'm not sure about that, but you can also essentially use that to try out those services. You will have 30 days to use it, like this $200, and after 30 days you can either cancel your service, you are not charged for anything, or you can even use the popular services free for 12 months. That's one thing which is very, very beautiful. There are so many free services which you can use. So if you see, these are 12 months, you can create your virtual machines, you can create SQL databases, you can create blob storage, app service, which I'm going to discuss about it, right? So these are all the things which you can do. And one of the things which I'm not sure that if Chandigarh, a group of colleges, has a Microsoft alliance, like MSDN alliance or anything, probably you can use that account to actually, they give you free credits out of that to actually try out Microsoft Azure and its services, right? So the first thing which you do is, you start off the free one, right? And then you pay your credit card. And what I have done is, I have the account which I'm gonna use it, I've already consumed my free trial. So I have a credit card, I have put it around, but I have used pay as you go. So now what happens is, in case for a demonstration, or in case I want to try out certain service, I just create that service, try it out and delete that, so that I'm just charged for exactly very less amount of time or whatever it is. And roughly my bill is $0 almost every month, unless and until I am using consuming a service very, very highly, right? So that's what it is all about. This is the first thing you need to do. You just need a Microsoft account or an Office 365 to create this. And the second thing which you need to do here is, you just need to go on to a link called as a portal.azure.com. right? So if let's say once I go on to this, let me show you around. So because I'm already signed in, let me just sign out. Okay. So once you go on to, you create account, portal dot, let's say, okay. So it would ask you to pick up an account. So if you don't have an account, you would need to create an account. So account creation is the first thing. But once the account is created, then you need to add a subscription. The account creation does not ask you any username password, because you can just use a Microsoft's account. So it does not ask you any credit card or any details. But let me show you. So you have a user name password, which is a Microsoft account. I have my last name, first name, Hotmail. I use this to log in into this. And okay, just give me a second. Let me log on. Okay. So I cannot remember my password. Okay, so I log in. That's fine. So this is where you come in. This is a kind of a dashboard into portal.azure.com where you can start playing with these services. So as discussed, if I go back to my slide, in the portal, I need to have an account, which I have. So you can use a Microsoft account or an Office 365 account, which I have. And now the next thing is you need to have a subscription to work with this. So if you see, I can just go on to subscriptions, or I can just search on subscriptions over here. This is a complete search bar. So let's say I go on to the subscriptions, and I have kept my subscription. There is one subscription which I've kept on my name, RD Azure subscription, and this is an owner, and my current cost is $0.34 because I use certain let's say services, and it is an active subscription, and it is a pay as you go, right? So you just pay whatever the service you used, and you just charge for that. Now when you go on to the subscriptions, you can add one subscription out here, right? This is where you need to supply your credit card and other information. When you add a subscription, so one of the key things, because I already have a subscription, so it is asking me subscription name, a billing account, which is already like over here. But let me click on add a different type of subscription, because if it's the first time you're using this portal, you might be seeing different types of subscriptions. So if you see the free trial, which I was talking about, so my account is not eligible for that. The reason for that is because I have already used that. So free trial was expired, I used it, and then I converted it into a pay as you go subscription. So I can even create another subscription, this flexible subscription, pay as you go. So you can select the offer, right? And I was also, as I was talking to you and talking about the MSDN, or a Microsoft Students Alliance. So you can use that. I'm not sure, probably your HODs or your dean can help you out in this, but you can use that offer to activate your MSDN account and use that subscription for trying out certain services. So let's say because my free trial is expired, if your account is a new one, you would get that select offer. And you have other offers also here. Visual Studio, if you are a member of a Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, or let's say another Microsoft's Professional Network, Azure for Students Hardware. There are so many cases where you can just go for those subscriptions. But let's say if I have a credit card and I say, okay, let me just go pay as you go, because I already have one subscription, I can select another subscription, this offer, and then it would ask me certain details about that. Okay, create a subscription, what subscription you want. So let's say test subscription I want. Okay, this is the billing account because I already have a subscription, so that's why these are automatically populated it, right? And then I'll go on to the next, and then I'll go on over here. It is just asking me about the subscription directory and subscription owner, this one. And if I say review and create, it is not going to ask me a credit card detail. Why? Because I already have a subscription running and I have the credit card details already given. But in your case, if it is a new account, it is going to ask you the credit card details. And please, if you have the credit card, you can give those credit card details. It's a Microsoft site, properly encrypted, and anything, they take care of your all those privacy and other details. And the another thing is, you have a very right to cancel that subscription. Like, you don't need, after 15 days you feel, no, I'm not this kind of a person, I don't really need it, you have a cancel, you can cancel it out at any time. So I'm not going to create any subscription out here, but this is the place where you can just create the first subscription. So that is very, very essential, because from a portal perspective, you need an account, and from an account you need a subscription. I already have one subscription, but I have an options to create multiple subscriptions, and I can use it. And then I get bill for every subscription separately so that I can see, right? Okay. I have spoken for so many minutes. Any questions, any queries right now? Then I'll actually demonstrate how we actually create a website, and I'll show you how you can do that through a serverless compute. Any questions, any queries? Okay, it looks fine. Let's go on. Okay, so now the first thing what we are going to do in this is we are actually going to create a website, and will, like, if you need to host a website, so what you would need is you would need a web server, you would need to create a website, and then you would need a web server with some specifications, with certain details. You'll try to have a hosting, everything. But over here, because it is serverless compute, I don't need to buy any servers or anything. I would just say, hey, I need a website, I need certain specifications, boom, that's all. It is going to do everything for that. And in order to create a website, before we create a website, there is one more thing which we need to understand, which is this is called as a resource group. So let me just show you a resource group. So if you search for resource groups, now what happens is resource groups, they are technically, they're called as folders, or like a logical grouping of certain facilities. Now what happens is, let's say in one subscription, I'm working on one project, which is, let's say, a project for a website. So I can create a folder, a resource group, which is just like I'll create a new resource group within the RD subscription. I'll say this is a RD workshop, right? So I'll just create that. And then the whole cloud computing is divided it into different regions. Let's say they have around like more than 70 regions around right now, and they are keep on adding those regions. So I can say, okay, this resource, you want to create a resource group. It is just like a folder where just like you create a folder and you keep files onto that, and then you select a region where you want to keep that. So normally I'll try to keep it in where it's closer to me. Let's say US West. Okay, where it is. Okay, this one. I'll just try to keep it in a region. You can keep it closer to your country. Let's say you're in India, you can keep selection regions for which are closer so that it's easier. So it's just a logical grouping, nothing else. So if you just click on next tags is like, for example, tomorrow somebody says, hey, can you search for this folder? You can specify a tag. Let's say this is department, and we say this is international affairs, right? So this is like easy to identify. Tomorrow you want to search for this. You can just imagine if you have so many resource groups, you want to search for a resource group based upon certain key value pair, right? These are the tags you can set it around, and it's easy for searching, right? And then you just review. Okay, and then you create it. So once you create it, so you see, you get a RD workshop. It's within the same subscription, and West US. I already have a one which is another resource group, that is RKV, and I can keep my resources into it. Okay, that was a simple one. But now let's do the major thing, and how to create a website. So if you want to create a website, one of these services which you need to use is this app service, right? So because these are the services which I have used over here, but otherwise you can just go on to this as your services and say create a resource. Okay, when you say create a resource, you have so many services which comes from Microsoft or third parties or anything. You can search out here, but let's say I'm going to create a web app. This is what I'm going to create. I need to run a web app, a website, or anything. That's what I need to run it. So once I click on this, a web app, okay, so the first of the things, it asks me a few details which we need to go through. First is the subscription. By default, it is the only one subscription I have, so it is automatically selected. So it says which resource group, like which folder you want to put this resource into. So I have all the resource groups. If you remember, this is the one which we created right now. So I'll just select that RD workshop resource group. Okay. Now it says, what is the name of the website, or the website name you want to keep it. So this is not the exact name which you would, let's say, just like you use google.com. This is a DNS name. You can change that DNS name, but right now you need some kind of a name for this website. So let's say, I'll just say RKV, and I'll say this is an ASP.NET website. Let's say we'll create this one, right? And if you see, once I give this name, it checks on .azure websites.net. Microsoft automatically allocates this domain name to you. We have the option of changing the domain name. We can change it to rohitdhan.com afterwards, but this is the starting point it wants to create for us. Okay. Now, another thing which we need to specify is the publish. So do you want to run it as a code or a static web app? Static web apps means primarily single page apps, which are like Angular or what you call as Angular, React or Vue based, or you want a Docker container. So if you know about Dockers, if you know about containers application, so you can use that also. But let's say we are just running right now a code-based application, and then you just need a runtime stack. Okay, so which application you want to run? Okay, I want to run a .NET 5 application, .NET Core 3.1, ASP.NET version 4.8, like the older versions. You want to run a Java application, Java 11, Java 8. You want to run a Node 16 application, Node 14, Node 12. You want to run a PHP. You want to run a Python. You want to run a Ruby. You want to run a any kind of an application, virtually all the platforms. So let's say .NET 5. Now, if I share my experience, I still remember if we were to give a server like to a developer or to host a website, it would normally take my system administrator for 2 days to set up that server. I would say I need a Windows server, set up that ASP.NET Core 3.8 or something. He would take 2 or 3 days to set up that server and give it to me. But over here, you just select those parameters, select it out, within a couple of minutes, it is up for you. Okay, so let's move forward. And now, what is the operating system you want? You want it a Windows based or you want it a Linux based? Because you know, .NET is a what you call as a platform independent now, so you can run on Windows or Linux. So I'm just for the demonstration purposes keeping it Windows. And region. Okay, so right now, which place you want to host it? I just want to host it within the same region as West US. So I'll say US West. Okay. And the another thing, for every website, like when you create a web app, so you need to provide a plan which is called as an app service plan. Now, every web app which you create needs to have a app service plan. You can share an app service plan with multiple web apps, like you would need an app service plan because this is the place where you are charged for, right? You're not charged for this thing. This is free of cost. You're actually charged for app service plan. Okay, so what is an app service plan? App service plan means technically what kind of a server you want to set it up, the configuration you want to set it up or anything. I'm going to create a new app service. It automatically creates for me, but I'm not interested in this name. I'll say, no, I want to create a new one and I'll say RKV test, let's say app test service plan. Okay, it says tick mark sign means it's all looks good. Okay, and now it says select the SKU and size. Okay, so what is the size you want? So right now it is saying 100 total ACUs, 1.5 7 GB of memory, but I don't want this. This is a standard S1 size. Let's say I'll change the size. So now you see, you get a blade where you can select, you want it for dev or test, you want production, you want isolated or scaling. So let's say if you go on to the dev and test, so this is a free one, shared infrastructure, 1 GB memory, 60 minutes, like you can use this server for 60 minutes per day compute free of cost, right? You are not going to be charged. So this is good for testing or anything if you want. Let's say you want a little bit more higher, you say 1 GB, 240 minutes per day. So that would cost you roughly around $9.49 estimated. You want this one, this is a B1, but let's say if you're setting it up for a production one, you can set it up like, okay, you need an 8 GB with 2 virtual CPUs, which would cost you like around $244 per month estimated. You need more higher specifications, 195 minimum, 16 GB, 4 CPU or anything. And mind it, even if you select any one of them right now, you have an option to change, right? So let's say I selected this one, which is a lower one, 3.5 GB memory, and I'm gonna pay 146 USD dollars per month estimated. Tomorrow I say, no, I need more memory or anything. You can just increase it to that, right? So you have a very option, this scaling and everything. So that's where the capacity is. And if you want to scale down, you can scale down also, right? So let's keep the things simple. I just want to go for a dev and test. I say shared infrastructure, which is like 1 GB memory because we just need it for a demonstration purpose. Okay, and let me hide this and I'll just say apply. So once you apply it, okay, so this is free F1, shared infrastructure, 1 GB memory. You can change size again, but that's fine. So over here, because we are choosing a free tier, so you won't get certain services, which is a zone redundancy, means if your app goes down, it can move on to the another app in the another zone, but that's fine. It is only for the demonstration. So let's move on. So these are the things which we gave: subscription, name of the website, publish, that is the code. We selected a .NET 5 application. We selected it should be Windows. West US is the region. We created a new Windows plan service because this is where you are charged for that. This one comes free. And then we'll go on to the next one, that is deployment. Okay, so it says you need, like if you guys are aware about DevOps technology, like you make a commit in the Git, it's automatically deployed. So if you want to enable that, you can enable right now. But even if it is not, if you don't enable it right now, you can always do it afterwards. So I'm just keeping it that way. And monitoring, okay. So you want, if you want monitoring, so monitoring means Azure would let you know, okay, how's your application working, how your server working. It can give you those app insights, so you can do that. But let's say I'm just keeping those things simple. I just want to keep, no, I don't want application enable insights. It's only for the demonstration. And then there are like simple things, tags. If you want, the same way I created a tag for name and department, international affairs, you want to tag your resources so that it is easy for you to search it around, and then review and create. Okay, so once you're done, it just gives you a kind of a review. This is what you selected, and I say create it. Boom. This is done. It is start going to deploy your resources. Now what is technically happening is, you have not bought a server, you are not like purchased a server, you are not invested anything, you are not even given a penny right now. It is exactly deploying a full-fledged server at the background with that website with all the details for you. So this is the abstraction. This is deployment in progress. It's taking a while. It is deploying a virtual machine. It's deploying that. Yep, boom. This is all done. The service is available. It says deployment succeeded. Go to resource. Okay, let me go to resource. If I go on to resource, so you see this is my website, archivv asp.net website. Okay, this is the URL which it created. This is the app service plan which we selected. This is the Azure subscription. This gives me a couple of charts, data in, data out, request, response, everything. There's virtually everything, right? So even let's say, now the simplest thing is, if you just want to try out this website, okay, let's copy this, go back to the browser and write it over here, paste it, press enter. So your website is up and running. Full-fledged website is up and running. There's a web server. Now you can actually deploy this, our own website. This is a standard template page which Microsoft deployed it for you, but you can deploy your own website, which I'll showcase it to you. But before that, just a couple of other things. For example, when you come onto this website, you can have a custom domains. Custom domains means I don't need this website's name like this. I need it rohitdhan.com or rohitdhan.ca or Chandigarh Group of Colleges to work on this. So I can give those custom domains. I can set those custom domains. And this is the scale up. like you want to scale up your service. Let's say next 2 months your website is going to be very heavily loaded by the users. You can use that app service plan to upgrade, scale out, scale up. You can scale down, so you're only charged for those certain cases. And if you see, these are the automatically the graphs that have been started now to showing data in, data out, right? Response time and requests, so you can see those graphs. Now this is the website which is there, but now let's say I want to actually create a website and deploy for my own. So this is the Visual Studio 22 Community Edition which I'm using. You can use 2019 also, that's not a problem. Okay, so let's create a new project, and I hope you guys are familiar with Visual Studio or Visual Studio Normal 2017, 2019. And I'm just gonna use select a ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. So let's select next. Okay, I'll name it as, let's say, RD Workshop App Demo, right? We'll name it, it is being stored at location, let's say this temp. Okay, you can change that location. Next, and yep, I don't need HTTPS right now. And which framework you want, .NET 5, .NET 3. Or .NET 6. So let's say I'm just choosing .NET 5.0. I don't need authentication right now, nothing. It's a simple website. I'll create that. So this is a small website which I'm creating, and people, sometimes students ask me, I have created a website, where should I run it? Like sometimes they need to run it for a demonstration purposes. Sometimes they need to run it for showing it to a angel investor for seed funding or anything, right? So now this is a standard website. If you see MVC website, a model view controller. And if I run this website, let's say, let's try running this locally, and then we'll try to put this into the other place. So if you run this locally, okay, and you would just see it would display you an index page, as you might have tried it for yourself in 2017 or some other places. Whatever Visual Studio you might. So this is our simplest index page that's given to us. Now let's say we just want to change this index page a little bit. This is a welcome message. I just want to write a message, and let's try that. So what we can do is I can just go on to the views over here in the home and in the index, because that's the page which is called, here it is the welcome. I just want to say, let's say H3. This is for the demonstration of the serverless compute, right? Okay, I'll just close that tag H3. Okay, makes sense. This is closed. This is a simple line which I've added. Let's try running this one again. So when we try to run this, we'll just see that that page has been changed because that's the index page which comes in. And it's a simple page, right? Now this is the demonstration of the serverless compute. Okay, makes sense. Now, the whole idea of creating this website is to actually run this website on this. I want to, because this is the web app I've created. It's a serverless. I don't have any servers. I need to run my website onto this. Okay, so now how do we deploy this one? So let's go on to the Visual Studio here again. Now the basic thing out to the simple deployment, normally as a recommended practice, the deployments should be done through DevOps. That's a completely a separate topic. We cannot really cover it in this workshop. But for the demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use a build, and from within the build, I'm just going to use a publish. Now when you use publish means I want to use this website and publish it somewhere. Now, when you say somewhere, it means you need some server, some resource. And because it is serverless, I don't own a server. I'm just going to pay something which I'm going to create, and it is abstracted for me. So what I do is I go on to the publish. Okay. And then it gives me so many options. You can publish to Azure, Docker container, folder, FTP server, or you have a web server. Let's say you don't have cloud, you have a web server, like you bought a web server, might be like Chandigarh group of colleges has certain servers, so you want to deploy it. So you can deploy it on a local web server, but let's say I'm going to deploy it on a Azure server. Okay. So next, I'll choose next. Okay. Now see, when you choose Azure, it automatically gives me, you want to deploy it on Azure App Services? Yes, that's the one which we created. It's on a Windows, Linux, container registry, or even on a virtual machine, right? So no, because I don't have any of the options. Probably I deployed the app service plan for Windows, and that's what we did. If you just go back, so this is the app service, this is the website app service, this is on Windows. You can just go on to the overview. It is running on Windows. This is the URL and West US. Everything looks fine. Okay, let's go back. So you go on to Windows, you go on to select next. Okay, so now here it is because I'm logged in as my Hotmail account, so it automatically picks up my subscription name, right? That's one thing which is important, because you would still need a subscription. Shuprit, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. Okay, so we were going on to deploy that. So one of the things which it automatically picks up your subscription. And then the second was the resource group. You remember we created a resource group in which we put on that website. So we click on, so we have a resource group, and then it automatically gives me RD workshop, right? So this is the one where I have certain instances which is created. So you select this was the resource group, and if you select on, this is the RKV website which I created, right? So it gives me so many options, but right now we're just interested in that. Sorry, this website. Okay, and then we'll just say simply finish. So once we finish, it would actually compile your project, create a package, and deploy it onto the website. So let's do that. We finish it off, and then it says, yep, I'm ready to.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep, sure.
Yes, sir. There is a query.
Yep, sure.
Students.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
गुड मॉर्निंग
सर ये जो सर आपने समझाया कि वेब ऐप रनिंग आ रहा है, हमने इसको उसके ऊपर कर दिया, कहते हैं वेब ब्राउजर पे, लेकिन जब आपने VS कोड वाला शुरू किया तो सर उसके अंदर समझ नहीं आया कि आपने क्या किया.
Okay, I can walk you through again, no problems, Riya. Okay, let me walk you through. Okay, so in the Visual Studio, are you aware about the Visual Studio? Like, have you ever used Visual Studio, dear?
Yes sir.
Okay, so now when you have used a Visual Studio, I'll just stop it right now, no publishing. So I've just created a website, right? This is a normal website, like an ASP.NET MVC website. What's your good name, dear? I'm sorry, what is your good name?
Sir, Shubham.
Shubham. Shubham, this is a MVC website which I have created in Visual Studio, right? And then I've just run it, right? And it is running on my local PC, right? I'm not running it on any web server or any serverless computer. It is just running on my local PC, right? So if you just run this, so what is happening is it shows me up a page over here, right? Which it showed me a welcome message, right? This is the index page which is being shown. And what I did was I actually like changed this page. I went on to, if you see, because it's an MVC, so you would have a views folder. So within the views, you have home, and within the home, you have index.chtml. This is the actual page that comes first time, Shubham, when you load your website, right? Because that's your index page. So when you clicked on this, this is the page which came, and we just added
Sir, actually, I wanted to ask that when you started the VS Code, then how did you create that
page? Okay.
I'll
I'll again walk you through that. That's fine. Okay, I got that now. Okay, so you start off with the Visual Studio, Shubham, and over here you can just create a new project, right? You can open up a new project, you can create a new project or a solution, or you can clone a repository from GitHub. But let's try creating a new project. Okay, so when you create a new project, it would give you so many options out here. So if you're not able to search, you can just search for ASP.NET Core MVC, right? So if you can search onto that, it can just give you ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. That's the application which you want to create, right? Does that make sense, Shubham?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, no worries. Okay, let's go back and let's continue with this our RDWS workshop. So the one which we opened it up. Okay, so we saw that we have made a small change and it is running on our local. It's running very fine. Now we just want to deploy it onto a Azure cloud. So let's go on to the build. From the build menu, you go on to the publish, RD workshop, this one, right? Publish one. So now when you click on the publish, so it is going to ask you a couple of things like where you want to publish that, which is the place. So let's say I want to publish it on this case, okay, because I have already given that deployment. So everything was specified, I showed you out, and see, it automatically picks up even the website name that we actually created, right? We actually tested it in here and it actually is running out here, which is exactly the same name. Okay, so once you say publish, because you specified all those categories, so you say publish. The moment you say publish, it would actually create a compiled version of that, create it into a zip folder, like some kind of a package, and then actually publish it out onto that particular website. So now if you go through this, so it says publish succeeded. Okay, sounds good. Everything looks fine. Now, because my website has been published and this is the website which I created, now if I go back onto here and now if I refresh this, so see this, you refresh it, boom. So your website is up and running. This whole stuff I can guarantee you out, if somebody is from like who has experienced the traditional web servers, this process would have taken at least 3-4 days time to set up a server, to ask a guy to set up a server, to create a website, to host it, then to deploy it and everything. And we just deployed it within, I think so, 5 minutes. That's all. So the website is deployed. You again want to do it. Let's make a small change and let's just do it again. So let's say we go over here. We say okay, so our website is up and running. Before deployment, I just want to test it. I run that website locally. So you would just see one another line that's being added onto that, which makes sense. Okay, yeah, this is really working and our website is up and running. Okay, now I want to add on to this. So if you currently go on to this website, it just have that, right? So even if I refresh it, this is the version which I have it. Okay, let's deploy that. So let's go on to build, go on to publish. Again, because I've already saved that profile one time, so it would just ask me to publish it. Okay, it starts again the whole process. Your website, like it gets it into a small kind of a package and then deploys it onto the app website. So now when the publish is succeeded, okay, you go here and refresh it. So it automatically opens up, but let's refresh this. Boom, website is up and running, right? So this way, now you can see, of course, there is a server which is running by Microsoft, by Azure Cloud, but we are not dealing with that. Now the beauty is that server we don't have to maintain. Microsoft maintains it, Microsoft updates it, Microsoft does everything for us. We are only focusing on the development part. That's the most easiest way of doing the things. Does that make sense? Right? So that's how the serverless compute is exactly like. It's a boom for the business houses. Like I spent almost 14 years in LPU developing their complete 3 award-winning applications, and we had almost like more than 50 servers out there over a span of like 14 years. And if At that point of time, cloud would have been there. It would have been so simple. But at that time, traditional data centers were there, and we had to like deploy those servers and have persons and deploy a website. And like I would have to call my guy, hey, have you deployed that website? He would say, yes, sir, I'm deploying it. It's taking some time. Here, it's just a matter of minutes, and no servers, nothing, no maintenance, nothing. Everything is abstracted. You can just focus on the development. That's the beauty of the serverless compute, right? And if you see, so your graph has now started kind of moving up and down because your server is exactly receiving certain requests and receiving certain responses, right? So you can see all those things, right? Okay, so this is one of the use cases which we have done. And in case now, if I'll just go back now and let's see, let's go back to the home. If we go back to our resource groups, which we were created, and we created an RD workshop resource group. Now in that resource group, two things were created. One was your website, which we are running, web app, and this was your app service plan, right? Now you are always charged for the app service plan. You are never charged for this, right? Because this is the server which is running in the background as an abstraction. So because I'm just using as a pay to go model. So let's say once you are done, you are tried your services as a, like even when you do with your account, I would highly recommend it to just delete those services. So select these two, let's say, and I say delete. So it just asks for a confirmation. Let's say I'll say yes. Okay, so it says these are the two resources within this group that would be deleted. I say yes, delete it. So once these are deleted, so it means even if I'm charged, though we were not charged for that because it was a free tier, if you remember, but it is always a divisible if you are learning and practicing to do it in this way. Okay, right? So let it remove. So it would give you all those details over here, executing your commands. It takes a while. Yep. So this is executed command on selected deletes and it's done. So your resource group, if you see, so we are in this resource group. This resource group is empty. So we don't have anything in that, right? So that was one of the demonstrations which I wanted to do. The second serverless demonstration which I want to do is for a SQL database, right? I'll try to do it in two parts. One is for the SQL server and one is for the Postgres, right? Postgres, why? Because some people might be using Linux or Mac. They might be using an open source database RDBMS like Postgres, and some people might be using, let's say, SQL Server. So we'll demonstrate both of the cases, right? And for the first one, let's give it a try for a SQL database. Okay, so when you want to create a SQL database, so you just search for like SQL databases over here, or you can just go on to create a resource, like you just want to create a resource. So you have a SQL database. These are all the Microsoft or the popular services which people tend to use it. So we'll try to use this one. So let's create a SQL database. Like I don't need a server. I don't need a SQL Server license, or I don't need anything. It is purely serverless. You just want to use a SQL Server, which is there in the cloud. You want to create tables, queries, or anything. You can do it in a very easy way. Let's do that. So go on to the SQL database, and this SQL database, let's try to, like, you need to specify a few more things the same way. So one of the first thing is the resource group that would always be there, and we are going to put it in the RD workshop, which was the resource group, like a folder we created. Okay, now the next thing is the database name, right? Now when you say SQL database, it actually creates a SQL Server database for you. And just in order to give you a view, are you guys, like, everyone has used SQL Server Management Studio or Azure Data Studio? I hope. Just a small yes would be good for me. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, so this one, when you actually, like, I have a, okay, let me close this because I don't need this now. Okay. and this one is okay. So this is the SQL Server Management Studio. It takes a little while to start off, right? And either we can use a SQL Server Management Studio. I have all the links with me, so don't worry. I'll share this file like free trial, Azure Portal, PG Admin app, which I'm going to use, VS Code, Community Edition, SQL Server Management Studio, or Data Studios or anything, right? So, okay, so this is like the local version which I have, right? Okay, this is not running on cloud. This is purely on, oops, it's not gonna run because I have actually stopped my service. So let me go on to the services and let me start off with the SQL Server service. Okay, SQL. Okay, so there is the service. I need to just start on. Okay, so it starts off the service. Boom, that's fine. Connect it out. Okay, so it would connect. So you would see these are like I'm connected to a local SQL server. These are like there's a database named Lovely over here. So this database I'm going to create, like I say, I don't need my server. I don't need a SQL server. I just need a serverless SQL server database. It is there on somewhere in cloud and we can just use it. So how we go about it? Let's go back to the Azure cloud. Okay, so this is the database name, just like we mentioned Lovely. So let's say we mention over here RKV test, let's say MyDB. RKV MyDB. Okay, and now whenever you create a SQL database, mind it, you would always need a server out there. A server is nothing but a logical server, like which Azure creates at the background. So let's say create a new server. So it says what is the server name, right? So I'll say RKV test, let's say SQL server. Okay, and where you want to place it? I want to place it in US West. Okay, and authentication methods, like just like I used it in this, like SQL Server, I use the Windows authentication because I can use either SQL Server authentication or Windows authentication. So here I'm just using a SQL authentication. Of course, you have some another Azure Active Directory or other way, but I'm just going to use that. And it says what is the server admin login, just like if you need to log in into this, like how do you log in? You provide a username and a password and then you log in. So here I say RKV and I'll say test, let's say admin, that's my username, and then I'll give some password which is something like this, and I'll give another password and the password matches. Okay, so I'll just say okay, so just a server name, the location, use SQL Server, RKadmin, password. Okay, that's all. So I come back, so I come back to the same screen. I'm creating a database RKV MyDB. This is the server. I created a new one, simple thing. Okay, now, so it says you want to use Elastic SQL Pool or not. Now, when you use Elastic SQL Pool, it means the same database. Let's say if you have 5 databases, they would use the same resources on the server because one database may not be using much of our memory or a RAM. The other database can also use it. So that's the purpose of the Elastic Pool. And then because I told you everything runs on the serverless, the server is abstracted and Microsoft creates a server on your backend. So what kind of a thing you want to create, right? Now there are number of things which you need to know over here. One is the service tier. Okay, so there are 2 models in the service tier. One is vCore model, one is DTU model. Okay, now DTU model is a little bit confusing. vCore model means, okay, how many cores you want in the server? Like you want 2 core, 5 core, 6 core CPUs or something like that, right? That is a vCore model. And within vCore, you can create a general purpose database, a hyperscale or a business critical, like you don't want your database to go down or anything. So you can either select vCore, and the DTU is our database transaction units. It is actually amalgamation of CPU usage, memory usage, and disk input output usage. Somewhat a little bit confusing, like how many DTUs you would need. So you can set up a basic, you can set up a standard, or you can set up a premium one. So the more fast, like if like the best analogy I can give you is, if you have used your laptops and if you have a SSD, like a solid state drives, it gives you a better performance in read write capacities, right? So it is based upon that. This is purely based upon the number of cores the CPU has it, right? So that's the fundamental difference. So let's say we'll keep it as a general purpose V core. Okay. Now compute tier, it has two: provisioned or serverless. Provisioned is always good when you know how much requirement you have. So you know, okay, 2 core would be good, or 5 cores would be good, or 10 cores would be good. Serverless means it is again another serverless, another layer where you are not aware, okay, how much load you are gonna get. So let's say you are starting a new business, you are not aware how much load you're gonna get. So you can use the serverless, right? So you can go in for a serverless where the automatically the throttling would be done and handled by Microsoft Azure. You don't have to worry about. But if the load is higher, you are paying more. If the load is less, you're paying less. But if you already know, okay, this is a standard load I'm going to get, you can set up a provisioned one. So let's say if we set up a provisioned one, so then it says, okay, it is giving me a hardware configuration up to 80 cores with 408 GB, and I'm going to be charged $400, which I'm not ready to pay, right? It's too much of a amount for me. So you can then go in for, okay, let's go for cancel it out. And then you can just say compute. Okay, let's go for basic for this one. Okay. So over here, in the DTU, it just says 5 basic DTU and data max size in GB. Like you have the maximum database size which you have for a database would be 2 GB. Technically, it's not required for, but it is something like might be for testing or for demonstration. And it might cost us like $5 a month, right? Probably. That's fine. I'll choose apply. Okay. So that's where just the basic one. Okay. Now the backup and storage redundancy. So when I say geo redundant backup storage, it means my backups are stored in Western region where I am, because I am in the US Western region, and then it would also be transferred on to another region, might be Asia Pacific, might be a European region. But let's say if I just want to keep it locally redundant means within West US, from one data center to another data center. I don't want to replicate it to keep my backup onto a Asia Pacific or European region, because if I choose that, it is going to cost money for me, right? So it all depends what you really want to choose and where you want to store, because this is only for demonstration. I'm just keeping locally redundant backup storage. Okay, makes sense. So simple one. I selected a resource group, gave a database name, a server. We created a small server with some username, password. We want to use Elastic Pool? No. Compute and storage, we just went for DTU, and we just keeping it locally redundant. Okay, next go on to the networking. Okay, so now the networking is very important. So by default it says no access. So when you create this, you cannot access that, right? But I want to access it. So I say I need a public endpoint. So when you say public endpoint, you can have two things. One, you can allow other Azure services, might be your app service, your ASP.NET website, to connect onto this. So you can say yes to this, or add current client IP address. IP address means my computer's IP address, because I want to access it from my computer to the Azure. So I click on yes. That's very important, right? Otherwise, if you don't do that, no access, you will never be able to access your server, right? So because we need that, so I'm setting it yes. And if you wanted your website also to access that, you could say it yes over here. But because we don't have any website or anything, we're just keeping it no. Okay. So connection policy, default or proxy or redirect, let's not getting much more details into this. You need more information. So let those keeps these things as same. TLS is just like an SSL layer which they use. And then we'll go on to the next security. So it says you want a security like a Microsoft Defender for a SQL Server. You can start a trial. It is $15 per month. You need a ledger, you need an identity, or you need a DTE, which is called as transparent data encryption. It provides you encryption at rest, encryption while data transfer. So I'm just keeping these things as it is. I don't want to add on to charge or anything because this is for a simple demonstration purpose. Next, additional settings. Okay, it says you are setting up a database. Do you have a backup? You want to restore it? So if you have a backup, it would ask you for a, let's say a storage account, like a backup from here, but I don't have a backup anything. It's just like existing data, none. Or you can, if you have worked with SQL Server, you might get a sample database called as AdventureWorks, right? This is a sample SQL Server database which you can download, or you can also automatically load it into it, but I don't need that. And then the database collation, let's keep it sample. And maintenance window, like when the Microsoft servers would be used for maintenance, right? They might be patching it or doing some upgradations or anything. So you can select your system default, because right now this is the one you cannot change it because we are selecting a lower category. That's all. And select next tags. Yeah, these are the tags which you can give for billing purposes. Next, review and create. Everything looks fine. Product details, terms, these are the basics. And you just, and the networking. So we have, this is my current client IP address. So if you see, my current IP address is this. It has added up yes, so that I can connect from my local PC to Azure. And I'll just say create. So once it says create, it's just going to validate it and initialize your deployment. So it is going to take a couple of minutes, and while it deploys, any queries or anything you have, please let me know, because it is going to take a couple of minutes, might be 2 or 5 minutes probably. Any queries?
So no queries yet.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, makes sense. So whenever you are deploying any resource, whether the app service or whether the SQL database, like we are deploying it over here, these are actually, they are not serverless. The servers are abstracted from us. We are just paying for using that server. We are not paying for the upfront cost or anything. And these servers are maintained by Microsoft Azure. Technically, it is deploying a VM out there in the data center automatically. Once the VM is deployed, the VM already contains your SQL Server, everything. And the beauty of this, there is one more thing which I want to let you know, that when you use a SQL Server, so right now, let's say this SQL Server, so if you see this, see the properties out there, let's say, let me just show you. Okay. So if you just do a query, this is a local server which I'm running. And if you say select version, if you select a version, so this is SQL Server 2019 I'm running, right? This is our developer edition I'm running on Windows 11 machine over here. The one of the things which I wanted to explain here is when you set up a SQL database serverless on Azure, it is automatically configured to 2019. And the beauty is tomorrow when 2022 would come, let's say SQL Server 2022 comes, your SQL Server is automatically upgraded to 2022. So you don't have to pay any kind of a server license fee or anything. Like you are always upgraded. You are always on the latest stuff in terms of what you call as a serverless compute. That's the beauty of it, right? So you don't have to worry about, oh, I got a SQL Server 2022. Now here, if I have to, like, because I'm using a 2019 here, so if I have to upgrade, let's say 2022 comes in, I would have to upgrade this SQL Server because this is a local installation. So I would have to uninstall it, install a 2022 version or whatever, right? So that's what, but over here, nothing is to done. Okay, so deployment is succeeded, looks good. Go to resource. So this is my RKV, my database. This was my server, SQL Server. Okay, and this is my server name, which they have set it. My server name .database.windows.net. Okay, I'll copy that. Okay, now I can use this in two cases. So one, let's go over there and let's use it in this case. So we'll use the SQL Server Management Studio. So I'll just say SQL Database Engine. I'll say server name as this, and I'll specify SQL Server Authentication, and I'll specify my RKV admin, and then I'll specify my password. That's the password which I gave at the time of creation of that SQL Server database. So this is the server name. This is the SQL Server Authentication, the username, and the password. Connect it. Boom. You are connected to a SQL Server running in Azure, full-fledged. So this is a local database. This is a Azure database. See those databases? You get that RKV, my database. So you get those tables and anything, because right now you don't have anything. Okay, let's create a table. And mind it, because you guys are connected onto an Azure database and we have configured a very less specifications of that. So it would have little bit of a lag because it is connecting from my local computer to a server in Azure, right? So let's say you create a new, you create a table. Okay. So let's say you create an ID, let's say department number, let's say this is big int. It's a little bit slow, not responding. Okay, by the time it responds, we have another which is called as Azure Data Studio. I think so you guys know about it. Let me just, okay, so this is big int, okay, and department name. So let's say this is n variable character 50. Okay, I'll save this. Let's keep this table name as department. Okay. So there is a table that's created. So if you see now, you refresh it, you get that table. Okay. Now let's say you want to insert the data. So you can just say edit top 200 rows. Let's say you want to insert it. Okay. So for example, this is department number 10. Oops. So let's say legal is the department name, 20 marketing, and then 30, let's say technology, right? So let's say we entered this. Now we just want to, so we select the database as let's select new query. Okay, so we'll do select star from, okay, no, it's not coming onto there because we selected onto a different one. So let's do a new query. Okay, select star from DPT. Okay, so we'll just execute it. Yes, so we created 3 rows. Those are the rows which are there. It's a normal table. Whatever you want to do, you want to, let's say, create triggers, indexes, whatever. But the only thing is that database is not here. It is somewhere in the cloud, purely serverless. It's a compute which is running. We are just accessing it. It looks good. Now let's try the same thing through Azure Data Studio also. This is one of the things which is cross-platform and we can use it anywhere. So let's try connecting it out. This Azure Data Studio is a free download. You can use it on Mac OS, Linux, Windows, cross-platform. So let's create a new server. So this is a SQL server and I need a server name. So I'll I'll paste the server name, which is that one, and SA is the login. So we'll just need to specify the same RKV admin and then my password. I'll update it later. Okay, and then I'll just connect on. So the moment I connect on, okay, so you see I'm connecting on. This is Azure database. You click on databases, you get that database, and because we have created a table department, click on here, tables, so you get that table, right? And then you can just, like, if you want to, let's say, edit data, so if you select that, it takes a little while because it actually sends the request to the Azure server and it would show you all those 3 records which we entered there. And the more, like, okay, so these are all the 3 records which are there. Okay, so that's what we wanted to see it, and these were already created through this SQL Server Management Studio. So either you use SQL Server Management Studio or you use Azure Data Studio. I'll provide you the links. You can just download it or search it on Google. It is exactly the same thing. SQL Server Management Studio is more likely a platform which is, I would say, used for administrative tasks like backups or anything. Azure Data Studio is more likely from a developer's perspective, not from an administration purpose, but it is also a cross-platform. So you can use this Azure Data Studio to connect onto an Mac OS, or you can install it in Mac, Linux, Windows. It's a cross-platform product, right? So that's how it goes around. Okay, so I hope you are able to see this, and this is where our database is. Its use spaces. So if you see 21 MB, allocated is 2 MB, and the maximum size of our database is 2 GB. And one of the beautiful things out here is you don't need any kind of a, what you call, a backup or anything. The backups are automatically taken for the databases. This is automatically done by Microsoft Azure. So that's the beauty. You don't need even to set up your backups. You get the backups, they are stored, they are automatically taken, and you can use that backup. And one of the other things, so for example, let's say I demonstrated a Visual Studio app like ASP.NET app, and you want to connect to this server. So this is the database connection strings, right? So you want to use it for ADO.NET, you can use it, you can copy this string and use this string. You want to use it in a Java, let's say JDBC, you want to use it as an ODBC driver, you can use it that way. You want to use this database server connection string, they have given you this code, you can just copy this code and then put it around. And even they have given you a download a PHP driver for SQL, right? So this one is more useful in case you are a PHP developer and you want to use this server as a for a storage one. So you can just copy this code, use it over there. You can just give your username, password, that's all, supply it, and you can even download your drivers, right? So that's how the things are, they're automatically done. This one, like automatic tuning, it automatically does your query tuning, your database optimizations, everything is done automatically. You can have alerts for if your cost is going high, you can set up those alerts and everything, like you get an email if your cost is higher or not, right? Okay, so this is a simple one. Let's go and set up another one, because SQL Server, you might have seen, nobody has seen a, let's say, Postgres. Let's do a Postgres also. So when you do a Postgres, it's exactly the same thing. And one of the key things which cloud providers have done is they are now providing you every technology. If you want to run a Windows machine on AWS, you can run it. If you want to run a Linux machine on Azure, you can run it. If you want to run a .NET Core application on AWS or on Google, you can run it. And if you want to run a, let's say, a Java or a PHP or a Node application on Windows, you can run it on Azure. Like, so they are like, in order to get more customers, and so they are like keeping it all those services open. Okay, let's create the Azure database for Postgres. This is another one which is there. Okay, so when you click on that, okay, so you can create a database, Azure database for PostgreSQL Server. That's fine. Click on that. So it has almost like similar kind of options. You can set up a flexible server, best for production workloads, require zone resilience or predictable performance, right? You can set up a single server for simple workloads. This is a hyperscale or Azure enabled Postgres hyperscale preview. This is for 100 GB or better performance, but this is in preview. Preview means this is not in general availability. Still Microsoft is working kind of a beta stages. So let's go in for a simple one, which is a single server. So we'll create that. And it says consider creating a flexible server. No, I'm just creating a single server. Okay, makes sense. Now the same kind of options you would go through that. So subscription, automatically selected, resource group. So let's put it into RD workshop. Server name, let's say RKV Postgres server. Okay, something like that. Okay, you have certain kind of a backup you want to restore. No, I don't want to do that. Where is the location? I just want to keep it West EUS, which is something like this. Okay, now when you do, so it is asking you, because this is not operated by Microsoft, it is like an open tool with different versions. So here it is asking you to select a version for Postgres, like which version you want, latest 11, 10, 9.6. Let's keep it as 11. And then again, you need a compute and storage. Okay, so what kind of a configuration you want for that? So when you do that, configure server, okay, so you can set up a server, with a basic. This is a basic one, which is a generation 5. So if it says it maximum is 2 cores, storage what you want, 50 GB, or you can reduce it, let's say I'll reduce it to 5 GB. Storage auto growth means as the database grows, the storage you want to grow automatically. I say no, I don't need that. Backup retention period, so how much time the backup you want to keep it. So you can keep it for a maximum of 35 days, right? So let's keep it for 7 days. This is the one. And locally redundant, so if you see this is the one which is there with V2 cores. You want to reduce it to like 1 core, you can do it 1 core. So the price has reduced to $32.82 USD, right? So this is how they kind of give you a price summary or a ranges, so that you can see what exactly you're going to pay for that. This is a basic one, but you want some journal purpose, you can go for journal purpose. You can have like in a journal purpose, go for 64 cores max, right? Like something like a production scale machine or anything, but see the amount which you're going to pay, right? Estimated cost. Storages, you want like probably 16,000 GB, right? Almost like terabytes we are talking about. Okay, so you can just like the way you want to structure that, and the backup redundant, and same geo redundancy. You want to put your database into another region, the backup, so that in case something happens, you can just recover it. And you can have even memory optimized Postgres. Memory optimized means where you have a V core, which is 32 cores, and then you have a storage, which you can just go in for, just imagine 16 GB. This is more likely a memory based, but let's go in for a basic one with the smallest one, let's say 1 core. Okay, storages, I just want to keep it, it's only for a demonstration. Let's keep it for 11 GB, let's say. Okay, and then storage auto growth, no. Backup retention, that's fine. Locally redundant, okay, makes sense. So that is done. I've selected all those cases. Now admin username, RKV admin, and let's say password is, I'll keep it same, and I need to specify the password again. Okay, and then you need additional settings, go on to that. Okay, so you need data encryption. If you need data encryption, then infrastructure encryption cannot be enabled in the selected region. So the region which I'm selected, sometimes certain services are not available in certain regions. They are like slowly made available as Microsoft progresses. And yep, I don't need that. Any need tags? No. Review and create. Yep, it looks fine. Gives you a detail before actually doing that. And we'll just say create. So it would start doing allocating a server at the background. The deployment has started off. It is exactly doing a deployment for a small server with the database. And for a Postgres stuff, there is one thing which you guys can use, which is PG admin app. You can just search for PG admin app. I have all the links in the Google in the document which I'm gonna share, but PG admin app is the app which you can just download it. It is just like a SQL Server Management Studio for Postgres. So you can use it for Mac, Python, RPMs, or you can use it for container based on Windows. I've already downloaded it, right? So once you download it, this would look like this. PG admin app. The current version is PG admin 4 version 6 they call it. So if you run that, and this is a management tool for Postgres, and it runs it can connect to a local version of Postgres as well as a Azure version of a Postgres, like, or even if you have it on AWS or GCP, wherever you want. Okay, so it just needs a password. That's the okay, I forgot my password. Okay, I remember it, right? So right now I don't have any servers out here. We'll use the Azure Postgres database to connect onto here. So this is one of the case. It's still deploying, so deployment is in progress. Sometimes just wanted to let you know that servers may take a little bit more time to deploy. The reason for that is sometimes the services are more in demand. People are highly consuming that. Sometimes it is like deployment is done in less amount of time as the load is less. So just bear it in mind. Nothing to worry, but it definitely does it at the background to set up your infrastructure. And always, I still would say always, if you are using your own account, you're not using any kind of a let's say your personal account where you're using your credit card, please do remove the service or stop the service if you don't need it, because otherwise it is going to charge you and you're going to get a bill after a month, and then you realize, okay, I didn't stop those services, or probably I didn't delete those services. So make sure the moment the services are used, you don't require it, please either stop them or either remove it. That is very, very important, because I have seen companies where they have like got a shock once those services were on, nobody took a care, and then after a month the bill was around like $5,000 or like something like that. So it's always advisable to use it in a judicious way. Any questions till now? It just takes a couple of more minutes to deploy. Okay, so deployment is done. Let's go to resource. Okay, so this is again our Postgres database with this blade is on. You can have connection strings the same. So see, if you want to use ADO.NET, you can use this connection string. If you want to use C++, use this connection string, JDBC, Node.js, PHP, PSQL, Python, Ruby, web app, right? So many things. Just copy them and then you're good to go. Okay, let's go on to the overview. So this is the server name, which we need to copy that. So I copy it around. And before that, if let's say, okay, let's try connecting it and see whether it connects or not. Okay, so we'll just try to create a new server. Okay, connection, and then we'll supply this server name. The port for Postgres is always 5432, and this is the database name, but the username is, okay, I need to copy that. So when you copy that username, copy it, so come over here, paste it, and then the password. So let's say this is the password, and I'll save that, and I'll just try to cannot be empty, name cannot be empty. Okay, so let's say Azure Postgres DB. Okay, something like that. So we'll go back to the connection. So probably everything we have given, we'll just try to save it. So now it says it is not allowing me to connect, right? Why? Because if we go back to our service and go on to the connection security, because this service is not accessible outside, go on to connection security and say allow access to Azure services. Yes, you can allow that, or even add your current client IP address. So in SQL Server database, when we created it, it did allow this, right? So it asked for you, but in Postgres it didn't ask for you. So you would have to exactly come here. You added it, client address, this is the start address and IP address, and then save it so that the connection security settings are saved. So it means my current IP for my PC would be allowed to connect onto this. So it's still updating the connection security settings. Once it would update, then we'll try again and connect it out. Okay, so successfully updated the connection security settings. Done. Let's go back to the PG app. Now you say, remove this, go back to general, connection, and where we are missing something. Okay. Let me just reset it. Let's try again. Azure DB connection. Okay. So, oops, that's my username. So let's copy that. Let's go back, copy it. So you go to the overview and copy the server name, paste your server name. So maintenance database, that's fine, and then the password. So let's save my password and save it. Oh, so it just connects, right? Azure DB, it's on, databases, and this is a Postgres database, right? I can create my new database or anything, but you want to create, let's say, in schemas, public. So let's say you want to, for example, you have tables and you can create a table. So let's say the table name is DPT. We're just keeping it the same way, columns. So you can have, let's say, a department number. Let's say we'll keep it as a serial number. Okay, and then we'll add another one, so which is dname, and we'll say variable character, oops, character 250. Oops. Okay, this is the character, and 255. Save it. Right, so now let's try view and edit the data, all rows. Okay, so you can see there's no right now any rows or anything. You can add data, you can create triggers, you can, the same way. It is just like right now this server is not locally stored. This server is stored somewhere. The backups are automatically taken. They are globally redundant or not. And one another big option over here is a read replica. Now read replica means sometimes your servers get too much of a load. Let me explain you visually, right? Okay, so let me just okay, so let's say what happens is you get around insert, okay, shapes. So let's say this is my server and this is my primary server, right? Let me copy this and paste it over here. This is my primary server. Now what happens is, so you have a primary server, which is your Postgres server, and then you set up as a read replica. Now what is happening with the read replica is, so when you set up a read replica, so all the users, they would actually go on to your primary server. So they are hitting this server, right? So the second server is like all the users, they are hitting this server. So there is a major load and people are hitting on the primary server. That's your primary server. Now, for example, there are certain users who are not going to write the data. Rather, they just need certain reports. They need only the read capacity. So then what you can do is you can just redirect all your users who are just asking for read capacity. So these are your read queries, and they would be actually fired from here. So it means all the persons who need reporting, who need business analytics, they just need the reading of the data. They need business analytics, they need data analytics, they need reports, they need grouped reports or whatever. You are not sending to the primary server, you are sending it to the read replica. So that's what you do in your application. So this way it can help you to elevate the performance of this server, because all your read queries are done here and all your write queries or read queries can be done by the primary server. So you can have multiple read replicas, like 5 servers or anything. That would help you to improve the performance, right? That was what is a read replica is. I just wanted to explain it to you. So yeah, and here this is a graph, like a resource graph, which is going around. You have a CPU percentage, you have a storage percentage, average utilization. That's what it is showing you right now. You can see how it is going. It is right now because we just on it. You can have for 24 hours, for 7 days or whatever. So that data can be shown to you. It's a full-fledged, I would say, for the business class applications. Like if I go back to this slide and I was talking about this guy, like a fictitious corporation, now you can well imagine traditional data center will not make any sense for them, because they do not want to invest on servers, softwares, maintenance, skilled professionals, depreciation, scalability. Serverless compute would be so easy for them. No initial investment, no maintenance of servers, no depreciation, scalability. You can scale them, scale down, whatever you want. Pay for what you use. Yeah, so you just need certain capacity, higher capacity, lower capacity. It is on an average basis what's being calculated. So that's why this was a strong use case for business ideas or startups, or even for students who want to try out certain things. You don't have you don't need a server. Like you need to try out let's say Azure Kubernetes service. You are trying a Kubernetes microservices kind of a project you want to work upon. You don't need a server to buy it or a physical machine. You just go on to cloud, set up that one, and just pay for what you use, right? It can be, or even for the free services, once you set up an account with a credit card, you get those $200 credits or 30,000 rupees, I think so, in Indian amount as a credit for using those, right? So those are multiple use cases of serverless compute. So remember one thing, servers are definitely be there, but they are abstracted. You don't see those servers. You don't have to pay for those servers. You don't maintain those servers. You don't pay for depreciation. You just use and pay for what you use. That is why serverless compute is a big way. Right now, I can tell you all the clients which I'm working, every single client, like 4 years back, I would ask all the clients, like, do you want to move on to the cloud? And they would say, no, there is a security issue. The cloud data is not there. What we'll do, this and that. And nowadays, rather than me asking whether you want to move to cloud, everybody simply say, Rohit, we want to move this thing to cloud. We want to move this thing to cloud. Can you help us in this? That's what they'll ask you. And that's the beauty of the serverless compute. And that's why Microsoft Azure or AWS, Amazon's AWS or Google's cloud is actually like the key leaders in this, right? Okay, any queries or questions? So much of stuff to grasp. I know it's little more, but still I have tried to make it very easy and simple for you to get you yourself to start it off. It is not rocket science. It is something simple. You need to create an account. You need to go and have a subscription, start working with the concepts. This is my YouTube. I have actually pushed so many videos on this. You can just go on like setting up. These are all the videos out there. Setting up Node or serverless or Azure functions. I've done so many videos beyond that, so you can see. I'll provide you all the links, but technically this is where, and remember one thing, there are so many things which you can do in the cloud. You don't have to go for one of the things which I wanted to mention as a career perspective, because that's normally the query which I get. So from a career perspective, you can have in the cloud, which people are high in demand, and there are so many jobs available, very high paid jobs. If you know those technologies, you can work in that. So one is serverless, which is there. The another is Dockers and containers. This is something which you should work upon. Microservices, which is Kubernetes or anything, right? Big data, that's something people are highly working upon, and that AI and ML, right? So these are the key areas. Like this, I'm talking about cloud, right? So in cloud, you can do so many things. Like we can have a session on, let's say, big data also. Like there are individual technologies, so much to cover, but these are fundamentally the major things which are in demand right now. People would ask you a lot of things, and if you can do, let's say, AI, or if you can do big data on Azure or any cloud, you would be high in demand, provided you know the skills. You can do certain things for them, and you can mint money. Like I have seen people out here in US. Canada is a little bit different country, but in US, my counterparts, like they earn like around like $500 per hour, like as a consultant. So if you know certain things and you're an experienced guy, too much money you can make. People are like damn to have. If you know these things, they are bound to have you on the rolls. Simple. That's as simple as that. Okay, well, that's all from my side. I hope this session has been good for you. It's a kind of a Kickstarter for you. I'll share the complete video, the deck and everything with also, so that once you get your Azure subscriptions, you can follow this video to actually practice and create websites and do so many things. You can actually do it at your own. Any questions, any queries, please free to let me know.
Sir, as such, no queries. No queries.
Okay, that's fine. If there can be two meanings for that. Either it went out of the head, or you actually got something to learn, right? It was thoroughly clear. So I'm assuming the second one, it was thoroughly clear to you guys.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable information on serverless computing, which will surely benefit the students to the mass. And the students have subscribed your channel and will learn more on your channel, and they will ask while learning on that.
Yeah.
This time they have created their account as per your as you were guided.
Right.
And they have learned, and moreover they have subscribed your channel so that they can learn it on periodic basis.
Yes, you can definitely learn it out. And once this whole workshop video, I'm already recording it out. Once it is streamed, I'll try to upload it on the YouTube, and I'll also share all the slide deck and all the links and my email addresses and everything whatever you need, probably what I used in here, as an email to Dr. Ramandeep. And then, yep, you guys can have it, and you can also watch the video for again practicing it out, or the way you want to carry it out.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, on the behalf of Dr. Ramandeep Saini and Department of International Affairs. So thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the students as well as the staff members who have connected and spared some time to listen to me. Hope it was fruitful, and it would be a good learning curve for them.
Definitely, sir. I hope they have learned a lot. And thank you so much once again for your time from everyone's side. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.